What does it mean to grow up in a world where the boundaries between the real and the virtual blur like ink in water? Could it be that the screens which promise us connection and belonging are also responsible for a silent isolation? Modern life has placed us in an uncomfortable paradox. We are more connected than ever, yet at the same time, so disconnected from ourselves. Marshall McLuhan, with his visionary wisdom, reminded us that we shape our tools, and thereafter our tools shape us. Now think about it. The smartphone, that seemingly innocent little thing in your pocket or hand, is it just a device? Number? It's an entire universe, a portal that not only redefines how we interact, but also how we perceive time, space, and even who we are. And what about children? Well, they've traded soccer fields, hide and seek, and the wonder of nature's small mysteries for endless notifications. What used to be a childhood of discovery has become an infinite loop of comparisons, likes, and distractions. Jean Baudrillard warned us about this. The danger of simulation replacing reality, but no one imagined it would start so early, shaping an entire generation from their very first steps. Can you grasp the depth of this? We're not just talking about a change in habits, we're talking about a reconfiguration of the very essence of humanity. We live in a silent dystopia, and the scariest part is that so few people notice. Remember Plato's cave? That place where prisoners spent their lives watching shadows on the wall, believing those shadows were the only reality? Today, the cave is in our pocket. The shadows? Perfect posts, hypnotic reels, and endless feeds. The difference is that instead of iron chains, we are now held captive by invisible algorithms designed to seize our attention and shape our desires. Childhood, then, has become a victim of this cycle. Children who should be exploring the real world now have their perceptions captured by filters and numbers, and the worst part, they don't question it. Like in Plato's allegory, they accept everything as truth. And you, have you ever stopped to think about how many times you've done the same? This brings us to an essential point. Who is behind these shadows? Martin Heidegger reminds us that technology is never neutral. It carries intentions, redefines our being, and transforms us into something we don't always recognize. Byung-Chul Han goes even further, speaking of the attention economy, a system that manipulates our deepest desires to turn everything into profit. We are living in an era where our emotions have become commodities and our minutes currency. But, and this but is crucial, there is a way out. Just as Plato suggested in his metaphor, leaving the cave is possible, but it requires effort. First, we need to recognize that we are trapped. We must acknowledge that what we see on screens is not the truth. It's a carefully edited version of it. Only then can we take the first step toward reclaiming what we've lost. To give childhood back its right to be light, spontaneous, and genuine. To give ourselves back the pleasure of being fully present in the here and now. The question remains, are we ready to face the light outside the cave? Imagine a magic mirror, but one that only shows what we want to see. An idealized version of ourselves, flawless, worthy of applause and admiration. Now, think of social media as that mirror. It's our Narcissus's pond, where we lean in to gaze at an image so polished by filters and algorithms that we almost forget it isn't real. But here's the detail that changes everything. Unlike the myth, this reflection isn't just a whim of the ego. It's built collectively, shaped by interactions, likes, and the invisible gazes that watch us. Nietzsche spoke of the eternal return, a cycle that challenges us to reflect. Are we living authentically, or merely repeating actions that bring us momentary comfort? In the digital world, it seems the latter prevails. We no longer live for ourselves, but for the gaze of others, the others who validate us, applaud us, and tell us we're good enough. And so, the narcissism of social media is no longer healthy self-love, but a constant performance, a cycle that turns authenticity into a currency and traps us in suffocating anxiety. In the end, what's left of us beyond the sum of the appearances we project? For children and teenagers, this scenario is even harsher. Growing up in an environment where everything is a spectacle turns comparison into a rule of the game. Influencers, celebrities, and even schoolmates become benchmarks of beauty, success, and happiness that no one can truly achieve. Rousseau once said that humans need to be seen and recognized, but he also warned of the danger of turning this desire into a destructive competition. And here we are, right where he predicted, a world where the desire to be acknowledged becomes a relentless race for validation. And while the surface shines, what's inside gets lost. This performance-driven society forces us to hide flaws, mask insecurities, and pretend we have everything under control. It's the spectacle of the self, as Byung-Chul Han describes it. Our existence is measured by our ability to attract attention, not by the depth of our connections. It's a cruel paradox. The more we display ourselves, the lonelier we feel. because genuine bonds require something social media doesn't allow: vulnerability. This obsession with appearances isn't limited to the younger generation. It infiltrates society as a whole, reshaping our values. We've replaced virtues like empathy, courage, and authenticity with an endless pursuit of status and external validation. What matters isn't being, but seeming to be. It's like navigating without a compass, adrift in an ocean of images and distractions, losing sight of what truly gives our lives meaning. Is there a way out? Perhaps it's time to do what Narcissus never could: turn away from the reflection, let go of the surface, and dive into the depths of real life, to rediscover authentic experiences, the ones that don't need filters or applause to make sense. It's an act of courage in such a noisy world, but it's also the only way to reconnect with what we've lost: our essence, our humanity, and most importantly, our sense of who we truly are. In ancient Greece, paideia was much more than simple education. It was an ideal of holistic development where body, mind, and spirit grew in harmony with nature and society. Childhood, in this context, was not seen as a passive stage, but as a vibrant period of active learning, a time to explore the real world and discover oneself through that interaction. Today, this transformative horizon has been replaced by something far more limited: the cold glow of screens. What was once a journey of discovery has become a passive experience shaped by algorithms dictating what to see, feel, and desire. During the Enlightenment, Rousseau called for respect for the natural pace of childhood development. He believed children needed direct contact with nature and space to develop their innate abilities, free from the interference of an artificial education that distanced them from their true selves. And wasn't he right? We live in a time he might have called dystopian. Childhood has been hijacked by digital overstimulation, weakening the connection to the physical world and diminishing the bond with our human essence. And it doesn't stop there. The absence of free play and genuine human connection leaves deep scars. Hannah Arendt saw childhood as the embodiment of something extraordinary, the potential to begin anew, to reimagine the world. It was a space where creativity, curiosity, and freedom converged. But what happens when we trade that for an endless stream of controlled information? Imagination dries up, and the ability to create disappears. The result is a less inventive childhood, where children become mere consumers of prepackaged content. This isn't just about individual choices, it's a symptom of a cultural crisis. Without something akin to paideia, we lose the chance to cultivate critical and autonomous individuals. Instead, we're raising entire generations dependent on external validation, afraid of failure, and unable to take risks. It's an almost cruel irony because learning has always been about making mistakes, trying again, and growing. Free play isn't a luxury, it's a vital necessity that prepares children for the challenges of adulthood. Behind this scenario lies a powerful idea that few dare to question: the belief that technology is synonymous with progress. Many argue that unlimited access to digital devices expands opportunities for learning and connection. But is this really progress? Or are we, immersed in a hyper-reality, mistaking what appears to be advancement for a distancing from the genuine experiences that make us human? Reclaiming what childhood should be requires courage. It's not about demonizing technology, but about redefining the space it occupies in our lives. Children need places where they can experience the real world, feel the earth beneath their feet, make mistakes without fear, and learn without an algorithm guiding their every step. It's about rescuing the essential, restoring childhood as a gateway to freedom, self-discovery, and genuine growth. If we can achieve this, perhaps it's not only children who will benefit, perhaps we can all rediscover a piece of the humanity we left behind in the race for convenience and spectacle. We are living in the most connected era the world has ever seen. With a simple touch, we eliminate distances and cross continents, yet paradoxically, we've never felt so alone. This is the great dilemma of social media. It promises to bring us closer together, but it often leaves us isolated. The Homo digitalis, this version of humanity shaped by technology, no longer lives in the physical world. It inhabits a universe of avatars, emojis, and quick reactions, but deep down it all feels empty, lacking the weight and depth of genuine presence. Our relationships are becoming fragile, disposable, as if they were contracts that can be annulled at any moment. In the digital world, this is even more evident. We don't seek to know others in their complexity. Instead, we consume fragments of their lives, measured in likes, stories, and shares. And so, modern loneliness is no longer about being without company. It's the inability to create real connections amid the noise and distractions. For younger generations, this loneliness is even crueler. Children and teenagers who should be learning the basics of human relationships, empathy, trust, reading expressions, and tone of voice, now spend much of their time interacting in the virtual world. There's no touch, no physical presence, no pause that says more than 1,000 words. The essence of a true relationship lies in genuine encounters where the I and the you recognize each other as whole beings. But in the digital world, this you turns into an it, an object to validate or consume. This disconnection comes at a high price. Jonathan Haidt, in studying the impact of social media on mental health, identified something alarming: a rise in anxiety and depression, especially among young people who spend hours immersed in these digital environments. The platforms that are supposed to bring people together end up isolating them in content bubbles and an insatiable quest for validation. With every like or comment, a false sense of connection deceives us while real bonds continue to weaken. The true despair stems from self-alienation, and today, that's exactly what's happening. In the digital context, we're so busy trying to please the gaze of others that we disconnect from our essence. The loneliness of Homo digitalis isn't just social, it's existential. A growing void, fueled by the search for meaning in a place that distracts us from who we really are. But there's a way out. To find our path, we need to return to the basics. Real community, genuine human contact, face-to-face conversations, shared laughter without interruptions from notifications, even the silences, those moments that don't need words but carry immense meaning. It's not about rejecting technology, but putting it back in its rightful place. A tool, not a substitute for life. Homo digitalis can still reclaim its humanity. But it takes courage. Courage to face the discomfort of reality with all its imperfections, contradictions, and uncertainties. Because it's in that depth where we discover what's missing, the true meaning of being together. In a world saturated with digital stimuli, the freedom of childhood feels like an increasingly distant dream. Once childhood was a time to run, play, and discover the unexpected. Today, it has been replaced by a routine of passive entertainment, mediated by screens that dictate the pace of life from an early age. If we want to reclaim what it truly means to grow up, we need to remember something fundamental: the return to the essential. Jean-Jacques Rousseau believed that children should develop in harmony with nature, away from the corruptions imposed by society. For him, freedom and autonomy were not luxuries but essential requirements for a human being to flourish. What have we done with this ideal? We've handed children over to a digital nature, which is far from natural and even less free. Instead of experiencing controlled risks that teach courage and resilience, they are immersed in a constant stream of notifications and instant rewards that keep them passive and dependent. Play, so essential to human development, has become a dispensable detail in daily life. Research shows that the lack of physical play and real interactions not only harms children's health, but also their ability to solve problems, handle frustrations, and build meaningful relationships. Play was the purest expression of human freedom, a way to transcend the practical limitations of life. When we deprive children of this, we are not just stealing their creativity, but also limiting their human potential. More than a lifestyle issue, reclaiming childhood is a challenge to the utilitarian logic that governs our time. We live in a culture that values doing more than being, where every moment must serve a practical purpose. But childhood should not be functional. It should be lived as an end in itself. Reclaiming childhood requires courage. Courage from parents, communities, and society as a whole. We need to rethink how we use technology and establish healthy boundaries. It's not about banning devices, but ensuring they don't take the place of human connection and direct learning from the physical world. Children need time and space to explore, fail, and learn without the constant weight of an algorithm making decisions for them. Furthermore, it is necessary to rekindle the flame of curiosity and independence. Shielding children from all risks is stealing from them the opportunity to grow resilient and confident. Life isn't about reaching a destination. It's about dancing in the present. Perhaps the greatest gift we can give children is the freedom to dance, to discover the beauty of the world without the chains of digital validation. Every step toward a freer childhood, connected to the real world, is a step toward a more integrated society. Because childhood isn't just about playing, it's the foundation where we plant the seeds of the future. Empathy, creativity, resilience, and the ability to imagine new worlds are born there in that fertile ground. When we trade this for screens and digital distractions, we compromise not only our children, but the very essence of the human experience. Will we remain trapped in this digital cave, or will we have the courage to step out of it? True freedom isn't about having the world at our fingertips, but about exploring it for real, with all its imperfections and authentic rewards. Reclaiming childhood is more than an educational choice. It is an ethical commitment to the future. It's about giving children back the right to be children, to imagine, to create, to connect without the chains of an algorithm. Rousseau once said that nature teaches more than any human contrivance. Perhaps it's time to listen to that wisdom again, to rediscover the simplicity of an afternoon outdoors and the richness of a world that cannot fit within a screen. Ultimately, it's up to us to decide. Will we remain prisoners of digital shadows, or will we dare to reconnect childhood with what truly matters? It won't be easy, but it is the only path, because as Plato taught us, leaving the cave begins with a simple act, looking beyond the shadows and seeking the light. If you've made it this far, thank you for joining me on this reflection. This video was an attempt to shine a light in the midst of the many digital shadows that surround us. I know that sometimes it's uncomfortable to confront these issues, but it's also an invitation to see the world in a more human, more authentic way. Let me share something that deeply moved me recently. I was at a park, one of those rare ones that still stand the test of time, and I saw a child chasing a little bird. She was laughing, completely immersed in that moment, while surrounded by adults glued to their phones. It was like an invisible slap in the face. Right there, childhood was alive, vibrant, in stark contrast to the distraction around her. That moment reminded me that life happens outside the screen, where laughter truly echoes, where the wind messes up your hair, and where connections are made through glances and touch. Now let me pause for a second. Yes, I'm talking to you. Are you enjoying this exchange? If so, here's what I'd love for you to do. Hit that like button, share what resonated with you in the comments, and subscribe to the channel. Let's keep this conversation going in future videos because, honestly, every time you interact, it's like lighting another lantern in this dark tunnel we're exploring together. Oh, and before you go, I've picked 2 videos for you right over there. I won't spoil the surprise, but I can guarantee they'll make you rethink things you didn't even know you needed to question. Want a hint? One of them is about breaking free from the endless loop of social media, and the other, well, let's just say it'll turn your perception of reality upside down. See you there?